Hi, I'm Ginny Rosenkranz with the University of Maryland Extension. It's June, and as you know, June can be hot, it can be cool, it can be sunny, it can be rainy, but you can still go ahead and garden. And I'm going to show you some beautiful container gardens that are easy to make. And I'm also going to walk you step by step through creating different type of container gardens, from a traditional one to a strawberry pot, the herb strawberry pot. So join me for Delmarva Gardens and learn all about the flowers and how to do this right now on Pack 14. There's so much you can do with containers. And what I love about this little garden right here is it uses containers for all the good reasons. First of all, it actually uses the containers as a background. It creates a small wall and creates a room right here, which is perfect. And it also prevents anybody from taking a drop off a very sharp slope that we have here. Very few slopes are in Salisbury, but this one has a little bit. The other nice thing about containers is that you can go ahead and plan the plants that horticulturally are compatible. Plants that like it really, really wet together, plants that like it really dry all by itself or whatever. So I'd like to sort of share some of these beautiful plants that they have here. This one right here is a gorgeous dahlia. Now dahlias are a type of plant that usually needs an awful lot of space, but right now it's got its own container, and you can see the new growth right here. Soon this is going to be out in full bloom. The other nice thing is they've gone ahead and put very, very quietly a cage right here, and that's going to support the dahlia, so it's not going to flop over. And that's very important because you don't want this plant to be in the way of the walkway. And this will also help support some of the flowers when they do start to bloom. Great idea. And right now it's a beautiful medium green, nice foliage, really pretty. This one, of course, is a tropical, and I think it's kind of cool to have a tropical out here. It's very happy. It probably thrives all summer long. It probably pouts in the winter, but you can see that it's very happy. They've pruned it up. It's been here. It's been in this container for a couple of years, and it's doing very, very well. Bringing in the blue color right here, they've actually mirrored it with this really pretty, this is a chrysanthemum right here and here. So these little baskets of, this is like a gold money plant. It's lots of different names for it. It's a little teeny gold ground cover, and they could actually leave this out all winter, but they've actually pulled the blue color with the carnations to pick up the blue in the flowers, which I think is really a nice idea, very good color scheme. Then they've gone ahead and grabbed the purple, which is very close to the blue. You can see that it's very, very good combination. And this is a sweet potato vine. So this is going to be cascading slowly out of here. This one's called Blackie, and it's a very slow growing sweet potato vine. And this is a nice combination planter where they've got the sweet potato vine, they've got the Calicopia, the million bells here, the coleus, like I think this is probably a sun coleus, and then a canna. And all of these like the same kind of moisture, the same kind of sun, so they're very, very happy here. It's a great little combination planter. Very pretty. Then moving over here, I love all these little containers here. This one right here is yarrow, and this is a pure white yarrow. There's so many different colors with yarrow. There's the gold, carnation gold, and all the other bright yellows, and then there's the reds, and there's the soft, what they call summer pastels, and they're all beautiful. But the neat thing about having the white right here is it kind of breaks up all the colors in this very, very brightly colored combination planter, and it gives a little bit of space, a little bit of clear, like cleansing the palate. If you are eating a lot of different foods, you want to have something that's going to cleanse your palate before you go on to something else that's kind of spicy. So they've got this. They've got a salvia that's not quite in bloom. And then right here, this is sort of neat, they have a grass. Now, not too many people think about putting grasses in containers, but they thrive in containers, especially if you can keep them a little bit on the dry side. So this one is very, very pretty. It's already in flower right now. This is what they call flower. And again, it has that soft blue-green foliage, which really keeps the colors soft. Then right beside it, we have another dahlia. Now this one is just about in bloom, and that's going to be absolutely exquisite. You can see a whole bunch of flower buds on it. Isn't that pretty? It's going to be big and lavender, maybe a lavender pink. The other thing that they've done with these baskets or containers is they've gone ahead and repeated some of the colors and some of the actual plants. Like for instance, they've continued with the blue. And this is a gorgeous salvia. They've got some verbena here too, but this is a beautiful salvia, nice and blue. And they've paired it again with the sweet potato vine, Blackie, and the little calicopa, or this is Million Bells. What I love about these is that they're self-cleaning, which is really, if you've got a lot of plants, something that you want to keep. Moving on, you can see some other things. They've got some black-eyed Susans that aren't quite in bloom. Some more yarrow back there, and this is just beginning to bloom, but what I love about this is that the foliage is so beautiful, and that's what you're going to notice. The color and the texture of the foliage is very petable. Behind is a euphorbia. That is a plant that actually blooms early in the springtime. It's already done all of its blossoms. It was bright yellow, and now all you see is the seed pods. So they could cut that back or just maybe put something else there. It's hard to say. This is neat. This is a real prickly looking plant, and it's called sea holly. It's very salt tolerant, but when it blooms, it'll have a bright blue color. So again, keeping with the blue colors, and this kind of a whitish spike thing is very, very pretty, very star-like, and it grabs your attention. Just don't touch it real fast. The other neat thing about containers is you can always add things to them to make them a little bit more fun. Like this one right here has a really very happy looking little flamingo. It's very fun art. It probably was just something that they saw and said this would be perfect in the backyard. Then they've gone ahead and continued and actually picking up the color of the flamingo with a little rose here, and also this gora. Here's a bee in the gora just having a blast in this. Gora is one of those perennials that sometimes overwinters beautifully and sometimes doesn't. And I've noticed that the darker the gora, the less hardy it is in the wintertime. But as a summer flower, it's fabulous, and it's very, very good in containers. Don't think of containers as only annuals and herbaceous perennials. This is a dogwood, and it's in a container, and as long as it gets the proper amount of water, it's a very happy plant. And I'm sure that it probably bloomed this summer, and it just looks really, really good. Let's go down and take a look at some other types of planters that we can go ahead and play with. This little shady nook has a whole bunch of plants that are in the same type of containers. They're all in terracotta containers. And terracotta is great because it has a tendency to allow the plant's roots to breathe a little bit more. It'll absorb water, but it'll also let a lot more water out. So if you have a plant that needs to have good air circulation, this is what you want, as opposed to a plastic plant. All of these, plastic pot, I apologize. All of these plants right here are shade-loving plants that like to have moisture, but they also don't like to be sitting in totally wet feet. These are all different types of coral bells, except for this one, which is a crane's bell. That's a type of geranium. This one right here, I think, is beautiful because if you take a look at the foliage, even after it flowers, you can see the little flowers right now. They're very tiny, very, very delicate, like little teeny bells, and that's why they call it coral bells. But the foliage of this one has got silver as well as maroon in it. And I just think that that's absolutely gorgeous. So that against all the greens and the greens with the reds really makes this a nice, very, very colorful corner. Now notice on these coral bells, the foliage on the bottom is a real pretty purple. So this could be one of the Palace purples or varieties like that. Just very, very pretty, nice, cool colors, but with a little bit of hint of warmth, just to brighten it up. Again, a nice shady spot, and this is coleus. Coleus is a plant that everyone knows that loves the shade, but I love this container. It's one of those upside down ones, and it just adds a little bit of whimsy to the garden. This one is just straight coleus, but look at the different colors and textures that this has. Very pretty. She's pulled out the reds and the greens, or he's pulled out the reds and the greens, and then he's married these colors with the begonia. The begonia has a reddish foliage, beautiful red flowers, and then they're picking up the red with the stems of the taro plant. Taro plants are plants that like to have a lot of moisture. They can actually go into a pond if you want, but begonias also like moisture, so this is a perfect combination planter where it has a shade, but it gets a little bit of sunlight here, filtered sun, and it can stay as moist as it wants to. And you'll know when this is not happy because it'll start to wilt on you. Very pretty. One of the neatest things about doing Delmarva gardens is I get to look at a lot of plants, and I get to see the different colors and textures and think how they would work together. Best of all, I can see how they would work together horticulturally. By that I mean, do all the plants love the same amount of sunshine? Do all the plants love the same amount of soil type? Like for instance, here's a gazania. This is a very drought tolerant plant, loves full sun. You'd want to make sure you put this in a container that's not a plastic container because plastic doesn't really breathe. It actually holds a lot more soil moisture. You'd want to have this in a terracotta container, so that would definitely go ahead and do that. You could go ahead and pair that with, this is really cool, this is a star plant, and this again can handle full sun. The colors don't exactly go together, so I would probably try to do something a little different than these two colors, but horticulture, they do go well together. There are other things that are neat though, is you can go ahead and do a salvia, and you can pick up the blue and the yellow. These two are on the opposite side of the color wheel, so they really pick up the colors. If you thought, oh, I have enough salvia, and you wanted to do something different, they have this new type of, it's not a snapdragon, but they call it a summer snapdragon. And it's just really pretty, so you can put those two together. Being an annual, it can go ahead and as soon as it's finished blooming, you can cut off the flower stalks and you'll get more flowers. I do love that about it. So pretty. Then let's see, what else do they have? Oh, again, this is something that's very, very drought tolerant, and it would go very well with gazanias. This is a lantana. Now, if you like to attract butterflies into your garden, this is the baby to plant. Now, the other thing is, though, you have to keep in mind how large these plants get. In these little 4-inch containers, they're very tiny. You'd say, oh, they would go beautifully together. This gazania is going to stay about the size, maybe double the size. The lantana, on the other hand, can get to be 2 feet high and 2 feet wide, so you'd have to be very careful on what you plant with this. It's very difficult to put this in a large container and go, okay, I'll wait for it to grow, but you really have to. There's some other really pretty plants that would grow nicely with it. Let's see, the vinca, the normal vinca, if you put the lantana on top and the vinca around it, you're going to pick up the red and that bright yellow and orange and red. So that would be a neat color combination. It's bright, you'd almost need to have sunglasses, but again, they would handle the same type of soil as well as sun requirements. Very cool. Snapdragons are good. Oh, there's all kinds of neat things. Down below here, I have all the things that really like to have shade and moist soil. So we have the begonias. You saw the begonias before. This is called a polka dot plant. It prefers shade, it prefers moist soil. And this little guy right here, I don't know why, but it's called the clown plant. Maybe because it looks like it can handle an awful lot, and it really, really has to be cool, shady, and happy. Then there's two plants that are really good as the center if you're going to have a circular plant. This one right here is a dragonwing begonia plant, and this can get to be about 2 feet high and 2 feet wide, but the smaller the container, obviously the smaller the plant. This one right here is a perennial for the south, but right here we consider it an annual. And I love the colors of the foliage. Now this one does bloom, but you really don't plant it for the flowers, you plant it for the foliage. This comes in bright reds, it comes in the pink with a white, it comes in pure white, which is a little hard on the plant, and white and green. Very, very nice. But again, these love to have moist soils and shade, so this is the perfect shade-loving plant. And you can actually pair something like this with some white impatiens. Again, they have the same kind of requirements. And if you put the pink with the blue, that's a nice kind of combination too. Very pretty. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead and put together a planter. I have some herbs and I have a strawberry pot, and I just go step by step on what we could do. And I also have a container that I've used before, and I want to go over how you should prepare a container if you're going to replant it. You know, when you use a container over again, that's perfectly legit, and it's a good idea. But there are a couple of things you want to do first. What I do always is I always empty it out totally, and then I take a scrub brush and soap and water, and I truly wash the inside of it really, really well so that there's nothing in there. I've already done that this morning. But then the next step I do is I go ahead and use a little bit of Clorox bleach or any kind of bleach that you want to. Again, you want to go ahead and make sure that this is really clean, as if you're starting with a brand new pot. Then you can go ahead and fill it with new potting soil, and you're good to go. The other thing I want to show you how I could do a strawberry jar. Here, let me move this out of the way real quick. Now this strawberry jar here is plastic, which is really cool, but it actually has strawberries in it. So this is neat. The reason why it's called a strawberry jar is you can plant a whole bunch of plants and they'll all cascade out of there. With this one, I'm going to go ahead and plant herbs. It has a nice hole for good drainage. It's terracotta, so it's always going to be breathing. This is better for strawberries. This is better for herbs because herbs like really, really good drainage. So before I do that, I have to fill it up with potting soil. Wanted to cover a little bit of fertilization first, though, before I do that. There's two types of fertilizer that you can use for containers. One of them is what they call a slow-release fertilizer, and they have these little prills, and you can either add a small container or a large container of it, depending on the size of the container. These are wonderful because every time you water, you're actually getting a little bit of fertilizer, and you don't have to do anything with it. The only trouble is sometimes these are released by heat. And as you know, sometimes in June, definitely in July and August, we can have really high temperatures, and that would release all the fertilizer. So sometimes I like to use these, sometimes I think, lightly on these things. The other thing you can do then is use a liquid fertilizer. I'm not advertising any particular products, but what this is a nice fertilizer that you can go ahead and add to water, and then when you have the water in the container, as you water your plants, you're watering your plants. That's a good idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and start planting. Before you plant, of course, you need to have good potting soil. So I'll bring my little workhouse container. This container is just my best thing. It holds all the soil I need. I can go ahead and mix stuff in it, wash it out easily. Wonderful. Now there's different kinds of potting soil out there, and I want to make you guys aware of that too. This one right here, again, I'm not endorsing anything, but this is just a nice one. It has does have fertilizer built into it. Actually, the type of fertilizer it has is the slow release fertilizer, the little prills. There's another type of soil that they have out now. It's called moisture control. This has got like different gels in here that absorb water and hold on to water. So when you water in the first place, the gels absorb water and then slowly release the water later on. This is great for annual flowers that need a lot of moisture, but not for herbs. Herbs need to have dryish soil. So we're not going to use that. We're going to go ahead and use this. Now, how can you tell if you have enough moisture in the potting soil before you use it? The first thing you do is you grab a hold of the soil and you make a fist. When you open your hand, it should stay in a ball. Well, this one obviously isn't. So let's add some water to this. I love this watering picture. Isn't that the coolest thing? Little frog with a crown. Okay, you can add water like this. If you want to wear gloves, you can wear gloves. If you want to use a trowel, you can use a trowel. But you just mix it all together like this. And I probably need to add some more water down here, but in the very beginning, I've got the top. Okay, if I squeeze it real hard, I get a little bit of water coming out, but when I open my hands, it sort of holds the ball. This still needs to have a little bit more water added to it. Let's go ahead and add this. This is where it can be fun. If you don't like to get muddy, wear gloves. And if you don't mind getting muddy, have fun. Now this is obviously too much because if I squeeze that, look at all the water that squeezes out of there. But it definitely holds the ball. What I need to do with this is just mix it in. Kind of like kneading bread. And the way I look at it, your hands can always be washed. There we go. The reason why you want to start out with the soil wet enough is that this type of potting soil is made with peat moss, and peat moss is hydrophobic. It does not like to hold water, and then when it does finally get onto the water and hold onto the water, it doesn't like to release it too much. If you tried to plant it when the potting soil is dry, you'll never get it wet enough, and your plants, even though you water them, will never be happy. Okay, with this, let's go ahead and get started. All right. Rearrange my little herbs here. First thing I'm going to do is put some in the bottom, some potting soil in the bottom. And with something like the strawberry pot, you add the plants as you get up to the top of the pot. So I've got potting soil up to here. And you can see now that the potting soil is right there. So now's the perfect time. There's all kinds of herbs that I could add. And some of them are so much more fun. This is cinnamon basil. You know, there are so many different varieties of basil that you have to kind of decide which ones you want to plant. This is the normal one that most people plant. This is the one that is, they call it sweet basil. This one's already started to bloom. And the reason why it started to bloom is it's been in the pot so long that it's stressed and it says, well, I don't know whether I'm going to be happy or not. So it's going to make flowers. And we need to punch that off because if you allow this to go to flower, the actual plant gets very, very woody. That's not the point. Okay, there's a basil, and we have parsley. This is the curly leaf parsley, and this is the Italian flat leaf parsley. They're both really good to use in this type of container, really cool. Then there's thyme. I love using thyme because, as you see, thyme can cascade down. This one's just starting to bloom, little teeny lavender flowers. This is very dry. We're gonna have to water that baby. Here's some rosemary. Now there's two different types of rosemary. Well, actually there's two different varieties of rosemary. There's the upright and this is the procumbent. So if I planted this on top, it would cascade down. Kind of a neat idea. And then this is an unusual plant right here. This is lemon verbena. Oh, I wish you could smell it. This is absolutely beautiful, and it has a nice fragrance. Again, it has a nice upright look, so we could plant this on top too. Then, for those of you who love garlic and chives, this is really pretty. I love chives. When you're going to prune it off to use it in cooking, you don't want to sort of give it a haircut like that. You want to prune it all the way down to the base like that, and then use the chives that way. Otherwise, it's going to look like you've given it a crew cut. Not a good idea. So for this right now, I'm going to go ahead and plant some thyme. What I do is I take it out of the pot. I always try to check to make sure when I buy these to see what kind of root system we have. Notice all the roots. This is almost a mat of roots. Isn't that something? So I'm going to just break them up just like that by pulling it around. You can almost hear it cutting. There we go. There we go. And then I'm going to pull on the bottom a little bit. The reason why I'm doing this, it's called pruning the roots. And let's see, will this fit into that? We're going to have to make this really small. That's a nice thing about herbs. You can go ahead and really squish them down and get them very, very tiny. Or plant them from the inside out. Here we go. There we go. So I've got my plant there, and it's already cascading down. I'm going to add some more potting soil. And I have another hole on this side. I'm going to go ahead and add probably this parsley. Again, this is in a large container. Look at those roots. Spectacular roots. Again, I'm going to go ahead and break the roots up a little bit. And I'm going to put this in on the side. There we go. Now, if you had smaller plants, you wouldn't have to put it in backwards like I'm doing, but I think that this is going to work just fine. And then you add the soil on top of the plants. You can see the roots right there. And I'm basically adding the soil to the top, right like that. There we go. Okay, and then I have to decide what to put on top. Probably, I think the lemon verbena, or maybe the basil. What do you guys think? The basil. I love the fragrance of the basil. So we'll go ahead and do that. Nice roots again. Always check the plant roots before you buy it. You're buying the entire plant, not just the pretty top. And by pruning the roots, again, like I said, every time you prune the roots, you get more roots growing. So if I planted it like that, it'd be a little bit too shallow, so I'm going to have to add some potting soil on top. There we go. And now I can go ahead and add potting soil all the way around. The nice thing about working on a deck is you can go ahead and brush the deck off and have that all cleaned up before you're done. It's a good idea to think about where your workspace is, because eventually you do have to clean it up. Okay. And I'm not packing the soil down. I'm sort of pushing the soil around so that I have good soil to soil contact. There we go. There we go. Now I could have gone ahead and added other plants if I wanted to, but right now I just wanted to show you how easy that is to do, even when you have large herbs. Kind of neat. What do I need to do now? Water it in. I've already gone ahead and added water, but you still want to go ahead and water it in. This helps get the soil to water contact. I'm going to go ahead and water it in a little bit like this. And like this. And then on top again. There we go. Well, afterwards, what you'd want to do is clean up the outside of the container. Something like this, when you're starting out with new plant and new potting soil, you're going to have soil all over the container. But once it's watered in nicely, you can come back maybe a half an hour later and just brush it all off, or take a damp sponge and wipe it all off. Okay, there we go. The other thing I want to show you is if you already have an old pot that it's full of maybe some spring plants, how easy it is to redo it. One of the neat things to do about dressing up containers is actually have a decorative container to put your container in. Here we have some terracotta and cast iron, and we have two basically styrofoam. They look like terracotta, but they're just styrofoam. And they give your plants a chance to have a decorative outside. So this plant right here was a nice little planting last summer with lots of annuals, and then in the fall I went ahead and put fall pansies. And I have a little water. One of my friends gave me this, which is kind of fun. But the pansies are pretty much toast, and I've already done this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and empty this out in a pot. Just get rid of it all. I'll compost this. There we go. And I could go ahead and reuse this, but I have to wash it first. So I'm going to go ahead and choose something different that will also fit right in. And I'll go ahead and plant this one instead. Now, with this type of container, this is a plastic container, but I want to go ahead and use the type of soil that also has water retention. So I'm going to add this that we've already mixed in first. Whoop. This has a bottom, so I'll just make it a lot easier for cleaning. There we go. So I'll add all this first to the bottom. You notice I didn't put any gravel or anything in the bottom other than potting soil. The reason why I didn't is I want to have those roots of these plants to grow all the way down into the soil. The more root space they have, the bigger the plants, and that's really important. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use this new type that is moisture control. Notice that there's white perlite, that's the white stuff here. That helps give the soil a place for roots to go ahead and have air. Roots actually breathe oxygen, just as we breathe oxygen. So if you have waterlogged soil, the only type of plants that are going to survive are plants that can handle waterlogged soil. Most plants don't like that. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and dump this in here. There we go. Good enough. Now I'm going to have to get some more potting soil, because if you can see this right now, it's up to this part of the rim. And this is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and plant some plants, but I'm going to need more potting soil to fill it around. Do want to share one cool thing with you guys. If you've gotten this far and you're saying to yourself, I want something that's really instantaneous, it's easy enough to get a hanging basket like this, take it out of the pot, and plant it right in. And then voila, you have a fully developed, beautiful plant. Now this is in a 10-inch container, so it's got a really good root system. As soon as you take it out of this little 10-inch container, all of these plants are just going to go gangbusters because they're going to fill in the rest of the pot. But we're going to be a little bit more fun with that. We're going to go ahead and do some of the lantana. I love lantana. This is such a butterfly magnet, and it's so pretty. Again, really gorgeous roots. Take a look at those roots, really pretty. And it's evenly moist, which is good. Pull the roots about. There we go. I am going to dig this in the soil a little bit because I'm going to plant everything so that it's going to be right about the same height as this. There we go. And knowing how big this gets, I don't want to add too much to it, but I still want to add some color, just a little bit of color and texture to this. So again, knowing that lantana likes it hot and dry, I'm going to add this melipopia. This is a really pretty little bright yellow flower. And it's going to pick up the yellow as well as the star flower look as this. And I'm going to plant it like on its side. So I'm basically taking some of the plants up, the soil up, and putting it on its side a little bit. Now I'm going to have to add some more potting soil. I did mention that before. This time I'm opening it up. And I think I'll use only half of it this time. That's the nice thing about these with the little zippers. You can go ahead and close it off, and all you need is what you need. All right, let me add some water to this. Very scientifically, but you know how to check it out right now. You just grab some soil, see if it holds the ball. Yes, it does. Good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put the melipopia on the other side too, just to balance it out. Not everybody likes symmetrical plantings. I think that they're very pretty, especially in a round pot. Asymmetrical plantings are just as nice. I'm going to put this on this side. There we go. And this is on that side. And then the two gazanias. Now these are very drought tolerant also. Notice how the roots are on the outside of this already. So this has been in the pot a long time. So I know that when I take this out, I'll have a lot of roots. So I'll just go ahead and break the roots up a little bit. You can hear the roots popping. And that's good. Every time you root prune something like that, you're actually getting more roots to grow. And I'm also going to go ahead and pull off the flowers that are on their way out. Annuals have a tendency to go to seed a lot, and that's good, but you want to encourage the plants to actually have more flowers. So by pulling off the dead or the ones that are almost dead, you're telling the plant, don't make seeds, make more flowers. That's what you bought them for, the flowers. Okay, let's put this here, open this up a little bit. There we go, and plant this in the side. There we go. Okay, now all of these plants are about a ½ inch from the top of the pot. Notice how, whoops, that was a little bit low. Let's go ahead and put that one back up again. All these plants are about a ½ inch from the pot. So what I'm going to do now is add the rest of the potting soil. One of the things that a lot of people do is they plant the plants right up against the pot, and that's sort of hard on the plants. They need to have a little bit of soil between them. They will do okay, but I think that they actually do better if there's a little bit more, maybe insulation between the plants and the pots. The pots can get pretty hot. That's another reason why I like to use a decorative pot to hold them too. It gives them a little bit of insulation. The other thing is, in the wintertime, I can go ahead and leave the terracotta pots out or take them in and still have my decorative containers with my winter pansies. There we go, adding this. And there we go. Ta-da! Okay, I have one more area. Sometimes you really can't see where all the pots need to be filled up, but if you move the plants around a little bit, you'll see that they're all fine. There we go. That's got soil around it. That's got soil around it. That does too. Good. Okay. This is a little bit full, but I think it's still good. And let's go ahead and water it in. You always need to water them in. Watering them in does two things. Like I said, it puts the soil of the plant and the soil of the potting container together as a better mix. It also hydrates the plant. Anytime you break the roots off, you're actually putting the plants into shock. They're like, what did you do to me? And this sort of helps a little bit with the shock. So there we go. In the beginning, you want to add a lot of water, and then you want to let the water drain to the bottom of the container. If there's too much water at the bottom of the container, wait about 10 minutes and then you can empty it. Some people say, well, what happens when the container is too big? You can go ahead and get one of those turkey basters that you designate only for plant material, and you can go ahead and get the water that collects in the saucer out at that point. That way you don't have your plant sitting in too much water. Therefore, you don't have root rot diseases. You don't have the plants swimming in the soil and water instead of just in the soil. And you also don't have mosquito larvae playing games in there too. So there we go. We've got some plants planted. We've got some beautiful containers here, and I hope this inspires you to go ahead and plant some gorgeous containers. Whether you have a sunny garden or a shady garden, you can still have beautiful plants and containers. So thank you so much for joining me for Delmarva Gardens right here on Pack 14.